So it is June 1st, 1889, right? We are in Paris.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah. And this highly respected 72-year-old French Mauritian physiologist, his name is Charles-Edouard Brown-Séquard. He steps up to the podium.
Right, at the Société de Biologie, I imagine.
Exactly. Very prestigious, very serious. He looks out at all his esteemed peers in their, formal coats. And he just announces that he has recently been injecting himself with a homemade elixir.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. But it is not some, newly synthesized chemical. It's an extract that he made from crushed dog and guinea pig testicles.
Wow, in front of the whole society.
In front of everyone. And he just confidently tells the room that this concoction has completely rejuvenated him. He's claiming it made him physically stronger, mentally sharper, just totally restored his youthful stamina.
Which, that naturally sent an absolute shockwave through the scientific community.
I can imagine.
But the irony here, looking back at that moment with, modern biochemistry, is that we know his elixir was almost certainly just a massive placebo effect.
Really? Just placebo?
Yeah, almost certainly. The specific molecule he was blindly chasing, which is testosterone, that wouldn't even be successfully isolated until 1935.
Oh, wow. So nearly half a century later.
Exactly. The crude, water-based extract he was using likely had zero actual hormonal potency. He was essentially just riding the incredible high of his own expectations.
Okay, so the guy was basically running on pure adrenaline and hope.
Right.
But, even if his actual syringe was filled with a physiological dud, that incredibly reckless presentation, it still sparked something foundational, didn't it?
It did. It was actually the necessary catalyst. His bold claim forced other physiologists to take the concept of glandular extracts seriously.
Because before that, it was just theory.
Exactly. Up until that point, the idea that tissues could remotely control other tissues through, invisible chemical messengers, it was highly speculative. Brown-Séquard's theatrical guinea pig experiment really kicked off a global frenzy of research.
Research into how the organs in our bodies might be, secretly talking to each other.
Right, exactly.
And decoding that secret language is our mission today. So welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive, everyone. We are diving into the body's hidden chemical messaging system.
It's a fascinating journey.
It really is. Today, for you listening, we are going to unlock 3 foundational medical roots. We've got endocrino, adeno, and thyroido.
The big 3.
Right. We're tracing the history from crushed animal parts all the way to the modern controversies playing out in your doctor's office and even your kitchen right now.
Yeah, it gets surprisingly close to home.
It does. But to understand any of that, we have to start at the absolute literal foundation of how these organs communicate.
And that foundation really lies in our first Greek root, which is endocrino.
Okay, let's break that down.
So endo means within or inner, and crine means to separate or to secrete. The defining rule of this entire biological system is a mechanism that we call the duct distinction.
The duct distinction.
Right. In the human body, every gland is fundamentally categorized by the physical route it uses to deliver its product.
Meaning, a gland is either categorized as exocrine or it is endocrine.
Spot on. So, if a gland is exocrine, it manufactures a product and secretes it through a physical tube.
Like an actual pipe.
Exactly, a physical duct onto a surface.
Yeah.
So if you think about your sweat glands pushing sweat onto your skin to cool you down,
Right.
or your salivary glands pumping saliva through tiny tubes into your mouth to help you chew, those are exocrine functions. The pathway is a physical pipeline.
Okay, so what about endocrine then?
The endocrine gland, on the other hand, is completely ductless. It has no physical tubes at all. It secretes its chemical messages internally, directly into the surrounding bloodstream.
I think a lot of people hear the word endocrine and they just assume it is a sophisticated medical synonym for hormone. Like the two words are interchangeable.
Yeah, that's a very common linguistic hurdle. But endocrine strictly refers to the secretion pathway. It is not the substance itself.
Got it.
Sweat, tears, digestive juices, those are secretions too. They just rely on the exocrine pathway. Whether a gland is endocrine or exocrine is entirely about the delivery infrastructure and has nothing to do with the chemical nature of the package being delivered.
Okay, the pancreas perfectly illustrates this, and I feel like it makes the entire concept incredibly easy to visualize.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the pancreas isn't just one or the other, it actually plays both sides of the fence simultaneously, doesn't it?
It does. The pancreas is the ultimate dual-engine organ. Inside that one organ, you have a massive population of what are called acinor cells.
And those are the exocrine ones.
Right, strictly exocrine. Their job is to manufacture highly corrosive digestive enzymes and pump them through a physical pipeline, which is the pancreatic duct.
Straight into your small intestine to break down your lunch.
Exactly. But scattered right in the middle of that exact same corrosive tissue are these completely separate, tiny clusters of cells called the islets of Langerhans.
And those islets are playing a totally different game.
A completely different game. They are pure endocrine tissue, they manufacture insulin and glucagon, and because they lack any physical ducts, they just release those vital, blood sugar regulating hormones straight through the cellular walls into the blood.
That's wild. You have one single organ utilizing two completely different physiological strategies operating side by side.
Yeah, in the exact same organ.
It's basically like a massive factory with two totally distinct shipping departments.
That's a good way to look at it.
Like the exocrine side is a physical conveyor belt loading boxes onto a delivery truck, right? Pushing those digestive enzymes through a literal tube to a specific destination.
Right.
But the endocrine side, those islets of Langerhans, they abandon the conveyor belt entirely. They operate like a Wi-Fi router, broadcasting a signal into the ether of your bloodstream.
Knowing that signal will instantly circulate and reach every single cell in the entire building, the physical conveyor belt versus the wireless broadcast, that is actually a brilliant way to conceptualize the mechanics.
Well, thanks. But, because early anatomists were dealing with a system they couldn't physically track.
Right, no microscopes.
Yeah, they couldn't see these internal Wi-Fi signals in the 1600s or 1700s. They had a terrible time figuring out what to call these structures.
They really did.
Which brings us to our second root. And I love this because the history baked into these specific terms connects ancient warfare directly to modern global pandemics.
It's a huge jump. But yeah, we see this clearly with the root adeno. In Greek, Aden translates simply to gland.
Right.
And you encounter this root constantly in clinical language, often attached to suffixes that describe a condition of a gland.
Yeah, and this is where people get scared. Because whenever anyone hears the suffix oma, like a melanoma or lymphoma, the immediate assumption is cancer.
Oh, for sure.
If someone is reading their medical chart and they see they have an adenoma, the natural instinct is to panic and assume they have gland cancer.
That panic is totally understandable. But medically speaking, the terminology has very strict guardrails here. An adenoma is always a benign tumor of glandular tissue.
Benign, so not cancer.
Right. The cells are multiplying abnormally. They're creating a mass, yes, but they are not invading surrounding tissues or spreading. Now, if a glandular tumor is malignant and aggressively spreading, the medical terminology shifts to a completely different classification.
Which is adenocarcinoma.
Exactly, adenocarcinoma.
Okay, so an adenoma is a localized, non-cancerous lump, while an adenocarcinoma is the malignant threat. But adeno isn't just restricted to cancer diagnostics.
Not at all.
This root is directly tied to the massive logistical rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines. And the link goes straight through the back of your throat, which is so weird.
It is weird.
Like, we all heard the term adenovirus on the news for years, but the name actually originates from the fact that virologists first isolated this specific family of viruses in 1953 from human adenoid tissue.
Right, tissue that had been surgically removed from patients.
Yeah.
And the adenoids are masses of lymphoid tissue situated high up in the back of the nasal cavity and throat. It is actually worth clarifying a quick anatomical quirk here.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Adenoids are completely distinct from your palatine tonsils.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the palatine tonsils are the ones you can actually see on either side of the throat when you open your mouth in the mirror.
Oh, right. The ones that always get infected when you're a kid.
Exactly. Now, they both capture pathogens, and they frequently get surgically removed at the exact same time in children who have chronic infections, but they are entirely separate structures.
Okay, so virologists isolate a novel virus from this specific throat tissue in the 1950s, they name it adenovirus, as a geographic nod to where they found it.
Right.
And fast forward to the 2020s, scientists take that exact same viral platform, strip out its ability to replicate, and use it as the delivery vehicle for the AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccines.
It's incredible.
The adeno root literally traveled from a lump of throat tissue to a cornerstone of a global public health response.
The lineage of medical vocabulary often takes those wild, centuries-long detours. And we see a similarly convoluted path with our third root, which is thyroido.
Ah, the thyroid.
Yes. The term thyroid was introduced in 1656 by a prominent English anatomist named Thomas Wharton. He published a groundbreaking book called Adenographia.
Wait, adenographia. So he used our second root right in the title to define the whole field.
He did, yeah, which literally translates to a description of the glands. He was trying to map out this confusing system, but when Wharton identified the thyroid gland in the neck, he was a bit stymied.
Why is that?
Because he didn't name the gland based on its own physical appearance or its function, mostly because he had absolutely no idea what it actually did.
Right, Kolkars.
Instead, he named it based on the cartilage it happened to be hugging. The gland sits draped over the thyroid cartilage of your larynx, your voice box.
Okay.
And that cartilage had been named centuries earlier because its physical shape resembled a thyreos.
A thyreos.
Right. A thyreos was a large, heavy, oblong shield carried by ancient Greek hoplite infantry.
So it is literally the most confusing game of telephone and anatomy. Because the thyroid gland is famously shaped like a delicate butterfly.
Right.
It does not look like a heavy infantry shield in the slightest.
No.
Naming this highly complex butterfly-shaped organ after a piece of cartilage next to it, which was named after an ancient Greek weapon. I mean, that's like discovering a brand new, highly complex planet and officially naming it next to Mars instead of actually describing the planet itself.
That's exactly it. It functions purely as a geographical coordinate in the neck. It's divorced entirely from what the tissue actually does.
Okay, so we have mapped out the internal Wi-Fi pathways, and we have decoded these bizarre geographical naming conventions. I feel like the next logical step is to look at the actual data packets being transmitted.
And messages themselves.
Right. What exactly are these Wi-Fi signals broadcasting through the blood, and how do they physically alter us?
This requires shifting from anatomy, the structures themselves, to the highly potent chemicals they produce, hormones. The conceptual framework for this was established in the 1850s by a brilliant French physiologist named Claude Bernard.
Okay, what was his theory?
Well, the prevailing paradigm in medicine at that time was strictly mechanical. The human body was viewed as a complex meat machine, coordinated entirely by electrical nerve impulses and muscles pulling on bones.
Very sort of steam engine era thinking.
Exactly. Bernard challenged this by proposing secretion internal secretion.
So he was arguing that the body could chemically text itself, completely bypassing the nervous system.
He was, and he was laughed at by some for it, but he was theoretically correct. The definitive proof, the smoking gun, finally arrived in 1902.
Who figured it out?
Two British physiologists, William Bayliss and Ernest Starling. They discovered a substance they called secretin.
Secretin, okay.
Yeah. They meticulously proved that the small intestine was releasing this chemical directly into the bloodstream, where it traveled quietly up to the pancreas and commanded it to release digestive juices. It proved once and for all that chemical messengers could coordinate distant organs without a single nerve fiber firing.
And then, 3 years later, in 1905, they realized they had discovered an entirely new biological system, and they needed a word for it.
Right.
So they consulted a classicist at Cambridge University who suggested they use the Greek word hormo, which translates to I excite or I set in motion. And that is how we got the word hormone.
And I set in motion is just a phenomenal piece of linguistic engineering because it perfectly captures the terrifying efficiency of these chemicals.
Terrifying.
Well, yeah, because they operate on what we call a biological cascade. You only require a microscopic trace of a hormone in the blood to bind to a receptor and set off a massive systemic physiological reaction down the line.
It is the ultimate domino effect. And our sources provided a really stark historical example of what happens when that cascade system experiences a tiny glitch.
Oh, yes.
In 1912, the pioneering brain surgeon Harvey Cushing described a devastating condition.
Cushing's disease. Patients suffering from this would experience profound full-body collapse. They developed severe, rapid weight gain centrally, their limbs experienced muscle wasting, their blood pressure skyrocketed, and they developed deep purple stretch marks across their abdomens.
Just horrific symptoms.
Yeah. Cushing relentlessly searched for the cause of the systemic failure, and he eventually traced it all back to a tiny, solitary, benign tumor.
Let me guess. An adenoma.
An adenoma, exactly.
There's the non-cancerous gland tumor again. It doesn't spread, But because it's glandular tissue, it is still furiously manufacturing chemical signals.
And location is everything here. This specific adenoma was sitting inside the pituitary gland.
Which is the master control center at the base of the brain.
Right. And because of the tumor's presence, the pituitary was rapidly overproducing just one specific messenger, ACTH, or adrenocorticotropic hormone.
Okay, let's break that one down.
Sure. So adreno for adrenal, cortico for cortex, and tropic comes from a Greek root meaning to turn toward or to stimulate. So ACTH is a highly targeted chemical missile designed exclusively to turn on the adrenal glands.
So the tumor is basically screaming at the adrenal glands to turn on, and they just follow orders.
They follow orders blindly. The adrenal glands, which are sitting on top of the kidneys, go into absolute overdrive, flooding the patient's entire circulatory system with highly toxic levels of cortisol.
Wow.
Yeah. A microscopic tumor in the brain triggers a chemical cascade that effectively dismantles the patient's entire metabolism.
A tiny short circuit in the master switchboard, and the whole factory burns down.
Exactly.
I mean, the sheer power of these I-excite messengers is terrifying when it goes wrong, but understanding that power also led to one of the most quietly miraculous public health triumphs in American history.
Oh, the goiter belt.
I'm talking about the eradication of the goiter belt, yeah.
Preventive medicine operating at scale.
Truly, if you look at a map of the American Great Lakes or the inland Pacific Northwest in the early 1900s, the soil in those regions was naturally completely depleted of iodine.
Right, it's just a geographical feature.
Yeah. But the human thyroid gland absolutely requires iodine as a raw building block to manufacture its two primary hormones, T3 and T4.
And without it?
Without it, because they couldn't get iodine from their food, huge swaths of the population developed goiters. The thyroid gland in the neck would swell to massive proportions, visibly bulging out of the throat.
Trying to compensate.
Yes, desperately trying to multiply its cells to catch whatever microscopic trace of iodine might be floating by in the blood.
And it was so endemic, so visually prevalent in those specific geographies that public health officials literally named the region the goiter belt.
But then, between 1917 and 1922, a physician named David Marine and his colleague O.P. Kimball, they ran this massive trial in Akron, Ohio.
Right.
They took roughly 2,000 schoolgirls and simply administered regular iodine supplements. And when they compared them against a control group, the results are indisputable. The goiter rate in the treated group plummeted to near zero.
This trial was huge. It provided the rigorous, undeniable data required to justify a massive nationwide intervention. In 1924, the United States government began working with salt producers to roll out iodized table salt.
And for you listening, you probably have a blue canister of it sitting in your pantry right now, and you don't even think twice about it.
Huh.
But that single, incredibly cheap intervention functionally erased endemic goiter from American life in one generation.
It's amazing.
They used applied endocrinology to save millions of people from physical suffering.
They did. And, the goiter crisis highlights an important physiological reality about what those thyroid hormones are actually doing.
What's that?
Well, a major misconception addressed in the literature is the idea that the thyroid only manages weight or metabolism. People often colloquially say, I can eat whatever I want, my thyroid is great.
Oh yeah, we treat it like it's just a dial that controls how fast we burn calories.
Exactly. Metabolism is certainly the most visible everyday effect, but T3 and T4 receptors are embedded in nearly every single tissue type in the human body.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. These hormones are actively setting your resting heart rate. They are managing your core body temperature. They regulate bone turnover, stabilize mood, orchestrate menstrual cycles.
Wow.
Crucially, in pregnant women, they strictly dictate the neurological brain development of the infant.
That is massive.
They are fundamental set-in-motion switches for the survival of the entire organism.
Well, because you have these microscopic messengers holding the keys to almost every tissue in the body, any attempt to manipulate them is going to cause intense friction.
Oh, absolutely.
The transition from historical discoveries to modern medicine isn't a clean line, right? The field of endocrinology is constantly at the center of fierce, ongoing debates.
Yeah, the urge to hack the endocrine system has always outpaced the science.
Right.
Even long after the medical establishment moved past Brown Sequard's guinea pig extract, there was a constant struggle between hype and biological reality.
Tell me about it.
Well, in the 1920s, a surgeon named Serge Voronoff became internationally famous and extraordinarily wealthy by grafting thin slices of chimpanzee and baboon testicular tissue directly into the scrotums of aging men.
Ah, yes. The infamous monkey gland transplants.
The monkey glands, exactly. He promised it would restore sexual vigor and dramatically extend human lifespan.
And people bought it.
Thousands of desperate, wealthy patients paid exorbitant sums for this procedure. It was pure pseudoscience.
I mean, I assume the animal tissue was almost immediately rejected.
Instantly rejected by the human immune system. It provided zero biological function. Yet, because the complex science of actively measuring hormone levels in the blood wasn't fully developed yet, it took the broader medical establishment an entire decade to definitively discredit his practice.
People have always just wanted a shortcut to manipulate these pathways.
Always.
And even today, with highly precise blood tests and molecular biology, we are still locked in fierce arguments over where the healthy lines are drawn. I mean, a perfect example of this is the ongoing debate over subclinical hypothyroidism.
Right. This is a highly active daily debate in clinical practice.
So what exactly is it?
Subclinical hypothyroidism occurs when a patient's lab results show a mildly elevated thyroid-stimulating hormone, or TSH, but their actual circulating T3 and T4 hormone levels are perfectly normal.
Okay.
And in many of these cases, the patient has absolutely zero physical symptoms of a sluggish thyroid.
Let's explain why that happens, because the feedback loop here is fascinating.
It really is.
Think of the brain producing TSH like a thermostat on your living room wall.
Okay, a thermostat.
And the thyroid gland producing T3 and T4 is the actual furnace in the basement.
Right.
If the thermostat senses a draft, it starts clicking loudly, which is the brain raising TSH levels, to yell at the furnace to kick in and make more heat.
Right, turn on the heat.
So in subclinical hypothyroidism, the thermostat is clicking loudly, but the furnace is actually keeping the house at a perfectly normal temperature. What is the danger in that?
Well, the controversy really ignited in 2002. The American Association of Clinical Endocrinologists made a controversial decision to tighten the reference range for what constitutes a normal TSH level.
Oh, I see.
By shifting those statistical goalposts, millions of people whose thermostats were clicking just slightly louder than average were suddenly classified as having a diseased thyroid overnight.
Just by changing the definition.
Right.
The physical patients didn't change, but the definition of normal did.
Exactly. And experts in the field of medical overdiagnosis, researchers like H. Gilbert Welch, they argue this policy shift has fueled a massive overdiagnosis crisis.
Really?
Yeah, they argue it drives a massive surge in lifelong prescriptions for daily synthetic hormones like levothyroxine for millions of asymptomatic people. And they point out this is happening without clear, definitive clinical evidence that intervening actually improves their health outcomes or longevity.
It highlights the profound danger of treating a number on a lab result instead of treating the human being sitting in the exam room.
It's a massive debate.
It is a debate over how aggressively we should micromanage these pathways. But, that debate is contained inside the doctor's office. There's another massive endocrine controversy playing out right now in your kitchen.
Right, the environmental side.
Yeah, the fight over endocrine disruptors.
We are talking about exposure to synthetic chemicals like BPA, bisphenol A, and various phthalates, which are heavily utilized in manufacturing plastics, food packaging, and consumer goods.
Everywhere, basically.
Yeah, and the scientific concern is that the molecular shape of these synthetic chemicals closely mimics our natural biological hormones. When they enter the body, they can accidentally bind to cellular receptors.
And do what?
Well, either falsely triggering a cascade or blocking the real hormones from successfully docking.
I want to push back on this a little bit because this debate defies almost everything we generally assume about toxicology.
How so?
In daily life, if I take 2 aspirin, it does more than 1. If I drink 3 cups of coffee, I am noticeably more wired than if I drink 1.
Right. Linear.
The assumption is a linear dose response. So how can a microscopic trace of plastic from a food wrapper theoretically be more disruptive to the body than a much larger dose?
It's a great question, and that paradox is exactly what makes the regulatory science so incredibly complex. Traditional toxicology assumes a linear dose-response curve. A little bit of poison is bad, a massive amount is deadly.
Right.
But the endocrine system does not operate on traditional rules. Because hormones utilize a highly sensitive cascade system, a microscopic dose of a synthetic chemical might perfectly fit a receptor and trigger a massive unwanted cellular response.
Yeah.
However, if you flood the body with a high dose of that exact same chemical, the body's defense mechanisms actually recognize the toxic flood and defensively shut the receptors down, ignoring the chemical entirely.
Oh, wow. So a trace amount sneaks past the guards, but a massive amount triggers a lockdown.
Exactly, which means standard safety testing models, which usually test chemicals at high doses to determine safety, might be completely missing the subtle chaos happening at microscopic levels.
That is wild.
Regulatory agencies, the chemical industry, and endocrinologists are locked in a fierce, ongoing battle right now over how to rewrite the rules of chemical safety.
It's everywhere.
It is. And this profound ability to radically alter human biology by deliberately manipulating hormone pathways is also exactly why applied endocrinology is at the absolute center of major contemporary health policies,
Like what?
including the highly complex policy landscape of gender-affirming hormone therapy. The entire field is built upon understanding how these chemical messengers strictly dictate physical reality.
That makes total sense. So let's take a step back and look at the incredible arc we just traveled today.
It's been quite a ride.
We started in an 1889 lecture hall with a 72-year-old man injecting himself with crushed guinea pig testicles on a wildly hopeful hunch.
Never forget the guinea pigs.
Never. We decoded the Greek roots to learn that the pancreas is simultaneously running exocrine physical pipelines and endocrine Wi-Fi signals. We learned that the thyroid is bizarrely named after an ancient hoplite shield.
Ethereos.
And that one tiny adenoma in the brain can flood the body with toxic cortisol. And we arrived in the modern world where doctors argue over the thermostat of subclinical hypothyroidism and regulators fight over the non-linear rules of plastic food packaging.
It is a remarkable trajectory of discovery. And, to leave you with one final fascinating biological reality from the research,
Hit me.
the very definition of what constitutes an endocrine gland is currently exploding.
Exploding. How can it be exploding? We have the textbook list, right? The thyroid, the pituitary, the adrenals, the pancreas.
Well, that was the 19th century view, a neat short list of dedicated specialized organs.
Right.
But modern molecular biology has revealed that this system refuses to be contained. We now know that your body fat, your adipose tissue, is not just inert blubber sitting there storing calories. It is highly active endocrine tissue.
Wait, really? It's secreting hormones.
Let's think about this from an evolutionary perspective. For most of human history, starvation was a constant daily threat. The brain needs to know exactly how much energy is stored in the vault before it decides whether the body has the biological budget to reproduce, fight off a massive infection, or even just keep a high metabolism running.
Okay, that makes sense.
So fat cells actively secrete a hormone called leptin as a status report to the brain. More fat equals more leptin, which signals the brain, the vault is full, we are fully funded, you can run all systems at maximum capacity.
Oh, wow. So the fat is literally chemically texting the brain to manage the budget.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. The muscle tissue in your heart secretes its own specific peptides into the blood to regulate blood pressure and volume.
The heart, too.
Heart, too. And the lining of your gut, while you are digesting food, is secretly manufacturing and releasing over a dozen different hormones to coordinate satiety and digestion.
So the Wi-Fi routers aren't just hidden in a few specific master glands in the neck or the brain. They are everywhere.
Everywhere. We are rapidly shifting away from a model of a few specific glands controlling the body to the realization that virtually the entire body is constantly talking to itself.
That is just mind-blowing. So for you listening, next time you look in the mirror, remember, you don't just have an endocrine system tucked away somewhere inside of you. Your fat, your heart, your gut. Virtually your entire biological structure is one massive, beautifully chaotic, distributed hormone-secreting network.
Beautifully chaotic. I love that.
We've definitely come a long, long way from the placebo extracts of Paris. Thanks for joining us in this deep dive.